Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth with Eden and Kim, shifting you into higher consciousness, the show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, special interviews with inspiring guests, intuitive readings, channeled messages from beyond, including celebrities, hot topics to expand your awareness, and time for questions from the audience. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magical moments.
Thank you, Duane, for keeping Prince and all of our hard work and legacies alive. And then we have Susanna Melvoin, who's also a friend to us. She wrote, Duane Tudahl has a potent, powerful mind. His ability to connect person, place, and thing is worthy of a musician, historian, and archivist medal. I'm thrilled he's continuing his work with Prince's music history and keeping it clear and readily available to the next generation of musicians and fans who would benefit from this extraordinary artist Prince and how he worked and created joy. Questlove says it's his favorite book ever. Wow, that's a big deal.
He said that about the first book. He hasn't said that about the second book, but I think he's going to like the second book. So
Yeah.
He probably loves this one more.
He already loves this one, I'm sure. But I loved how I just watched the Oscars, and I loved how he put Prince music throughout the Oscars, and there was like 3
Isn't
different.
that great? Wasn't that great?
And some obscure songs too. So
yeah, I didn't see it, but I heard all about it. And I'm like, that's really exciting. I'm happy that
I know.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
nice.
wait, I'm going to chime in and also just add in that just again what we talked about, Kim said in the beginning, that Elton John wrote the foreword for this second book.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Elton John thing came along in a very funny way because my wife and I were watching Elton John did a fundraiser for the WHO last year in March or something when the pandemic started going. And we were sitting there watching this, and I didn't know who I'd want to have. I knew who I wanted to have for the forward. And I said to her, wouldn't it be great if Elton John did this? And we laughed about it because like Elton John's like here, and I'm way under that. And I thought, that'd be great. And the next day, a friend of mine named Matthew Butone. Matthew is a person who is a Prince collector. I've known Matthew for 30 some odd years. We used to collect Prince stuff and just sit there playing stuff in his apartment back in 1990, years ago. And he called me and said, how would you feel about Elton John being your forward?
Oh my God.
And I was like, again, we're talking about, the same way with Vicky just reaching out to you. It's, it's like sometimes the universal energy starts to just, you start finding things attract. And I said, yeah, that would be amazing. And then we worked on it for about 10 or 11 months, literally from March until January when it came through. And we were still not knowing, I sent him a book in September. He read it. He loved it, said, we're going to do this. But, you can't ask Elton John to, look at the clock. If you get it, great. And I didn't have a plan B. I thought, you know what? I'm going to put all my energy into this and to have him. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to read it. Is that
I read
that book?
it? Yeah.
Oh, then you see, it's charming.
It's so down
funny.
to earth.
Yeah, it's giving people a little bit of background with what he does in it. He talks about meeting Prince and going up to him and saying, I'm a big fan of your music. My name's Elton John. And as he's saying this, Prince just turns and walks away. And he's like, I'm Elton John. And the next time he sees Prince, and Prince says, you want to play on stage? Sure, what do you want to play? Well, let's play Long and Winding Road. And he's like, I don't really know the song. And he said, don't worry, you're on stage with me, it'll be fine. And he starts singing it, and Prince walks off to the side. And he's like, he keeps dogging Elton John out. And Elton John said, basically, he had so much respect for the guy because he was so far above everybody else that he's willing to accept it. I thought, if Elton John, who really is about as big as you get, accepts that eccentricity of Prince and the shyness of Prince because he respects him so much, that's the biggest compliment you could ever have. Because Elton John could easily just said, nuts to this, I'm out of here.
Right.
And yet he said, you know what, I respect him, I want to do something with him, and it worked out. And I thought, the fact that he wrote this, the fact that he even knew my name, was just mind-blowing. So it's kind of a cool thing.
He's your friend now.
Well, I've never met him. Never met him.
It
never
doesn't
talked
matter.
to him. Right, sure,
energetically.
we're tight buds. But
Yeah.
it's funny. If you look at the cover of the book and you think my name's on there, Elton John's name on it, and Prince's name on there, I'm thinking
That's beautiful.
one of these things is not like the other.
Iconic.
Yeah. But it's really it's humbling and it's amazing, and I can't wait till people can read it because it's the kind of forward that only somebody who's a superstar rock legend could write, and that's amazing. So
Yeah, and at the end part of the foreword, doesn't he talk about how they finally did play together,
yes.
like a full song, and
Mm-hmm.
and Prince stayed there with him. So it's such an enjoyable.
It's
it makes
great.
you feel like you're there hanging out with Elton John, hearing a story.
It's fun, and that I'm so grateful for Matthew B. Tone for. He worked hard on getting this done, and he's been a friend, like I said, for 3 decades. But man, that was just, the gift of that is just phenomenal. So I'm forever in his debt, and forever in Elton John's debt, and his husband's debt, and everybody who was involved with this, because it's beyond humbling to have Elton John involved in any project you're doing.
Right, that's so cool. Well, I'm sure you're getting some little help from Prince up there as well. So.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how and to go a little bit, but doesn't it seem like sometimes Prince has ways of influencing things? You're sad and you turn on the radio and it's a song that's perfect for that mood, or even just randomly you're like, boy, I'm feeling something, and you turn on the radio and it's a song that brings you up, and you're thinking, or you meet somebody and they're singing the same song or whatever it is. There's something. I know that I don't want to deify him, but there's something about this connection that we all feel through him, and there's things that happen, and I don't know how to explain it, that happen that kind of reinforce your not faith, but your appreciation of Prince.
And he brought us together with you.
Yes, exactly. The Revolution show and things like that. So yes, exactly. So and when you guys are writing stuff, I'm happy to help out with anything. Oh,
we need your help. We'll talk to you later about that.
Oh, great! I would love it. They say a teacher is only somebody who's just done something one step ahead of you. And I happen to have a book. I'm happy to help out. And I've helped out several friends that are working on books, and because I needed that, and I got help from Matthew B. Tone when it came to this. Or Questlove wrote the foreword for the first book, and I'm in his debt, and then you got to pay back.
Right. And I know you've always been so down to earth and humble, Duane. So I think that's a beautiful thing. No egos, right?
Yeah, I remember, I want to say something nice about you. When we were backstage at that concert, he was the only, just because I can't say for certain, but what I was vibing, you were the only down to earth, humble person in that room.
What?
Well, I don't know about that.
We were talking to you.
Vicky's humble. I think
she wasn't in that room.
Andre's
she wasn't in the room.
humble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it just the 3 of us in the room?
No, there were a lot of people that were like kind of unapproachable. So I liked talking to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't even notice them. So I was happy to talk to you guys. I had a great time with you guys. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So,
I can't wait till they can tour again. I can't wait till they can tour again.
They're going to.
It's coming soon.
I want to get the Revolution on the road. I want to get the NPG on the road. I want to get the family of F Deluxe on the road. I want to get all these bands on the road.
Oh, that would be just if they all could be together in one big that'd be so magical. I know.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be ready for it.
Oh, they've had a year or two. You had to kind of get the time out there. I want all these bands. Yeah. Let's have a week. Let's have a week where every night at First Avenue they play.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Wouldn't that be the best? Sunday to Sunday, just the family, Sheila, the time, Revolution. Oh my God, wouldn't it be the best?
All right, see, you're prophesizing something else is going to happen now, energetically.
That'd be great. Yeah, remember, it started right here. It started right here. I'm sure I'm the first person to ever think of that.
Duane, yes. you're gonna get hired to be the manager of it.
My name's gonna be on the ticket. Duane Tudahl presents. Yeah, that's great.
So you were a stand-up comic, which that is just like, how did you go from being a stand-up comic to going into how did you get into writing about Prince, going from that to that, and the documentaries and everything you've done?
The bottom line is I'm a storyteller. I like stories, and my comedy was about stories. The best comedy comes from stories that you can relate to and things like that. And so I did that. Documentaries were the same way. You're telling a story. You could do a documentary about, the middle of a street and nobody would care. But if you do a documentary about a place that people can't go, a room somewhere or a recording studio, people would be interested in seeing that. Getting behind the scenes stuff has always been fascinating to me. So when I started doing documentaries, I did one about an album called A Very Special Christmas that had, Whitney Houston on it, and
I remember that. I have that
and all those
still.
things. Yeah, that's a great. And so we interviewed Bono and we interviewed Stevie Wonder for this, and interviewed all these other people through the Special Olympics, and it was really fun to kind of meet these Run DMC, and I produced this thing, and it was fun you're basically going into a room you're not supposed to go into, and that's always been a thing for me. So when I started, I've been working on this book, the first book, for about 20 years.
Wow.
And I started writing it when I was working on a magazine called Uptown Magazine. Uptown Magazine is this big Prince magazine for anybody who's familiar with that. And we do a lot of stories. We interviewed a lot of people. And along the way, I started talking to a guy named Pierre Nilsson, who wrote a book called The Vault and the one called DMSR. And I said, it'd be kind of fun to write this book about studio sessions, because the Beatles have a book about that and all this other stuff. And he said, yeah, we'll never get that done because it's too big. And I started nibbling at it for 20 years. And then my wife finally said to me, are you going to do this, or are you going to make this an expensive hobby? And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I was close, and I took about a month and a half to wrote. And I finished the first book up about a month before Prince passed, and in March of 2016. And it was so I was really close to the subject matter. And then when he passed, it's still tough to talk about that time. I'll use other words besides, that. But it was really profound to do this. And I thought, I don't know if I want to come out with a book. And I asked some of the people I interviewed, Susan Rogers and things like that, and they said, you should come out with a book. You've been working on this for 2 decades. But I didn't want to be that guy coming out with a book right away. Look at this. And the toughest thing about that book when I did that was changing all the things from Prince is to Prince was.
Oh my gosh.
So you have to go through 500 pages of making it past tense. Yeah. And that was tough. And then when I did that, I didn't know people would enjoy it. And people did. And then people said, can you do a second book? And I was like, oh my God, I'm tired. I'd like a week off. And nobody said, yes, you can have time off. They said, crack 2. And so I got working on the second book, and it took about 2.5 years working on the second book. But I'd already been working on the second book along with the first book. So it was like, it's a natural progression. This literally picks up the hour that the first book stops. So it's kind of you guys have read it. Have you guys looked at the book?
It is extensive and awesome. Yeah.
It's a heavy book. You'll throw your back out with it. It's a very heavy book. So, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of how. What's that?
Sorry, have you met Prince?
No, I did not.
Did you? So you didn't?
No, I did not. I will eventually, but no, I.
How many times did you see him live?
I never worked with him. Oh gosh, not enough. I think that's the answer. Probably about 16 to 20, I guess. Not. I mean, I've people that have seen him hundreds of times. My big regret was he played in Los Angeles in 2010 and played like 20 shows.
I went to one too.
I went to one, and I was like, I kept thinking, there's all time. There's time. The lesson I learned with this is no, there's not. You need to do what you need to do when you can.
It's true. Like I can't believe I only saw him 7 times, and so I took that as a learning lesson. And so I guess now it's been a year and a half ago when we saw Queen with Adam Lambert, we loved it so much that we went and spent like crazy amounts of money and got tickets to see it again the next day. Because I'm like, you know what? This time I'm going to learn my lesson and go,
Yeah. No, that's the way I feel too. Is with a celebration, it's like, of course I'm going to go. I'm going to go up there because if I don't, I will miss out on things. And at the end, I may work every day and stuff like this, but you want to have those things that kind of feed your soul. And live music does that, because I think even when we went to see the Revolution, there's a feeling of it's a gathering, and that's why I enjoyed Prince shows. Is you always felt like he was talking intimately to you, but you're in a crowd of thousands, and you can look over the next person. They're singing the same words, having a different experience with the song, but you are connected, and you're in a room with. You've got 75% in common with all these people, and you're thinking, this is giant family that, you know, you don't get other places. And live music kind of brings that back to us. And one of the cool things about live music is it sends out this vibe. You get goosebumps, and even when you're listening to good music and you get goosebumps, you're getting that because of this energy that's coming toward you. And Prince was the master at making you feel like he was talking to you,
right?
Even though he's talking.
Absolutely agree. So in your book, in the beginning of your new book, Prince and the Parade, Sign of the Times Era Studio Sessions, 1985 to 1986, you explain that you...
Which is a very long title, by the way. A very long title.
But I think it's fascinating that you wrote that you needed to tell his story. What was the deepest reason you feel that was in you? That's like, it's part of your life's purpose. So what do you feel that is?
That's a great question. I think when somebody gives to you so much, and I often feel, I didn't know Prince, but you feel like you owe somebody who gives to you something back. And I wanted to do my little part in letting people know how extensive he worked to make everybody happy. And there's a joy in what he did. And if I have a small part in sharing that joy with people, that's something, and I think we all, I've said this before, but, we all find things in our life jobs that feed our family, but you find something that feeds your soul, you want to pursue that. And writing the book is a nonstop thing. It's a lot of work. But there was something joyful about it. And I think one of the big things I find is Prince found his joy with music. You can see it in his face when he's, singing and playing, and you just see this goofy, playful guy that he found his joy in music. And that's why he went to the studio, because he just loved doing this. And I think that he shared that joy with all of us. And I felt like, you know what, karmically, or whatever you want to call it, there was something about me that wanted to give back and let people know this is worth noticing. And this is not worth noticing because it's entertaining, but because it brings something inside of you. And if you go looking for joy, you'll find it. And I think that that's the thing that I found with that, is his music brought that, not just to me, but to all of you and to so many people out there. When he died, I mean, look at all the world lit up in purple. Everywhere was purple, and you're going. And I think the funny thing to me is when he passed, I kind of thought I was in a small group. Up until that point, I knew there was a lot of people who loved him, but I always thought I was just, kind of there's a couple of us nuts, and But then you see that the world came alive, and there was something about that communal thing that just I don't know how to explain it. It just made me feel like, oh my God, I've got a bigger family than I realized, and it's a big, dysfunctional, crazy family of people all over the world who were sad.
It's the energy,
we lost the guy
like what you say, Duane, is that, like, I remember going to probably, like, throughout the 2 years after he passed, going to like 10 different Prince tributes and events and gatherings and things in Minnesota, and they all had this energy that was like indescribable, like everyone loving everyone with peace. I'm having so many goosebumps. He's like here listening to us, happy. But he created this energy for people to come together and be peace and love, like what God wanted us to be.
Right. I agree. I think the thing that I've found is there is a acceptance among people that are fans, and you don't see people fighting at these at parties. That we've all gone to these concerts. We go, and there's not an anger. There's a joy in what he sings, and even his sad songs, we're all kind of hugging and swaying along and things like this. There's a thing that bonds us, and if somebody can do that, that's not. I like some other music. Like a huge music fan in general, but when somebody conveys that sort of love and joy, it's you can deny it, but then you're just hurting yourself. And to me, it's like I want that. I want more, especially the way the world is. Bring on the joy. I'll open myself up to that. And I may get hurt sometimes because I'm open to joy and don't always get it. But I'm going to keep looking for it. And I had that with that. And I think a lot of us had that peace that he was sharing with us. And the leader of our group is gone. So we kind of have to do the heavy lifting now ourselves. And so I'm happy to do my small part in spreading that to my daughter who's 11, to other people in the next generation, to people that aren't even born yet, to let them know that legacy-wise, this is something you want to pay attention, because it wasn't just he was vital, he is vital.
Beautifully described, yeah. My 14-year-old daughter is so happy that we took her to a Prince concert when she was 5. Yeah, she brags about it.
I bet. Sure, it's like saying, it's like saying, you saw the Beatles, or you saw something. There's a thing you can pass on, and there's nobody like him. There was nobody before like him, and there won't be anybody that replaced him. There'll be other musicians who are amazing,
right?
But there's not going to be another Prince, and that's the thing that And those of us who saw him in concert, felt that vibe, or experienced it in real time. That's the other thing, is we got to experience this in real time. Other people are going to have a stack of 40 CDs and go, here you go.
Yeah.
We got to spend a year with each album going, oh, and learning and absorbing and looking forward to it. And I think that the sad thing is we don't have that to look forward to now with him. So we kind of have to, we no longer going to what he's going to do next. It's what he did. And we can reflect on what he did, his charity work, his just his inspiration to a lot of musicians. Most musicians, he's one of these rare musicians that you have fans loving him, critics loving him, and sales. And it's like you've got and other musicians loving him. Is what I meant. So you got all three of those things. You don't have that kind of thing. You have bands that are popular, you have bands that are critically acclaimed, but to have all three things kind of wrapping up is kind of rare. And so, and it just, and the other thing about his music is he's funk, he's country, he's pop, he's rock. Right. It's his own genre. And that's the thing that I think is something you can hear a song and go, oh, it's Prince, and when you hear him doing rock, or you hear him doing
he's like an anomaly.
Pretending.
Like there's no one ever out there like.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and you hear the layers of different things and the influences he had, and they all come out in this one thing, and you hear him, screaming or whatever, singing, and you know that, and there's something about that. Even his protege project, you're going, that's him. You can hear it, and even more so in retrospect when you look through the book, you'll see all the things he did for people. Whether the first book, The Time, or The Family, or Taj of Seville, or Jill Jones. Madhouse, you go through all these things and you're going, oh yeah,
he made so many groups, he made so many figures.
Yeah, he made his own competition. What kind of nutcase does that? They say, I'm trying to get to number one, but I'm going to make other people that chase me there. That's crazy.
Well, he was a little crazy.
Yeah, and that's the charm. I think the other thing is he was a little crazy in things, and we all look at it and think, maybe I can be a little crazy too. Maybe I can be an artist. Maybe I can, dress the way I want to dress, or maybe I can act, whatever it is. And you just look at it and think, he didn't care. Maybe he did, but he did what he wanted to do, and that's, if nothing else, that's inspirational to everybody, And he wasn't like doing bad things. He might have been doing bad things, I don't know. But the things he was giving us were good things. And he said, you know what? Even at the peak of his success, when he was, after Purple Rain, he could have done it. He could have taken 5 years off, like Michael Jackson would do, and we would have all been excited for the next project. He's like, no, the tour's over. 3 days later, or whatever it is, I'm going to come out with another album. And you're like, when did you do this? That he was back in the studio immediately. And by
when
the time
everybody was sleeping, he was doing it.
By the time Around the World in a Day came out, he'd already started working on the next album. He was like, nope, I'm a couple albums ahead. That is somebody who's so dedicated to that. Yeah. That's his purpose. And you got to respect when somebody finds that thing that makes them alive. And he did. And he shared it with us. And that's the big thing for me. So what was the question?
Well, I'm gonna go to a different question, Kim. On page 109 of the book, you have a quote by Prince where he talks about When Doves Cry and Kiss being gifts from a higher place. That you have to get from a higher place that you have to get out. Do you think a lot of his music was channeled or came from a higher power?
He, gosh, I'm sure he would say it came from a higher power. But he was. I mean, he would seem to be a funnel for this stuff. Whether he would, that's probably one of the reasons he stayed awake so much is because you don't know when the music's going to come in. And I found in life that I don't know how to explain this, but music feels different at night. Does that make sense? You can hear music during the day and you're like maybe distracted by light, but at night there's a focus on music. And he did a lot of his recording at night. And I don't